Muhammad Abasada is a professor of political science at Al Azhar University who joins us from Gaza City. We also have David Miller, co-host of Press TV's Palestine Declassified, who joins us from Bristol. Gentlemen, welcome. Muhammad Abasada, one day has passed, another Palestinian has been murdered. Of course, this Palestinian was injured yesterday, was in critical condition, and then passed away. What happened yesterday was, for lack of a better word, pretty outstanding, and it was not the same type and approach used by Israel. And even from the Palestinian fighter side, we saw a new development there. Can you please tell us your impression of what transpired yesterday?
Good evening, and many thanks for having me in this program. Well, let me say what happened yesterday was one of the bloodiest days in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, confronting the Israeli occupation forces who tried to enter the refugee camp in Jenin. As you just mentioned, 6 Palestinians were killed yesterday, and another Palestinian also who was injured among the more than 90 Palestinians who were injured yesterday also died today, which makes the number of the Palestinians who have been killed by the Israeli occupation forces more than 170 since the beginning of this year, just in the West Bank itself. Not to mention the Palestinians who were killed last month in the Gaza Strip as a result of the Israeli aggression against Gaza and at the beginning of May of this year. Israel basically is claiming that they are trying to arrest some Palestinian resistance fighters who are accused of fighting the Israeli occupation, carry out attacks against Israeli settlers in different areas of the West Bank. And what Israel was missing or under misperception, that the Palestinian resistance groups in the city of Jenin were well equipped to confront the Israeli occupation forces. As it was mentioned in your report, 7 Israeli soldiers were injured in this Israeli attack. An Israeli armored vehicle was completely destroyed as a result of a detonated bomb by the Palestinian fighters. And according to many Israeli media reports, the Israeli forces underestimated the power and the strength of Palestinian resistance, and that's what happened when Israel tried to rescue its injured soldiers by Israeli helicopters and gunships.
Indeed.
But it seems to me that the Israelis are not going to stop at this point. There are voices within Israel by ministers like Smotrich and Ben Gvir who are calling for a wide or a big military operation in the north of the West Bank. They call it like the same operation that was conducted in the West Bank in the year 2002. So what happened yesterday was the first time that the Israeli used helicopters in their battle in Jenin since 2002.
All right. So David Miller, when we reflect on what happened yesterday, it was nothing short than a war zone. And when you have Apache helicopters firing onto Palestinians on the ground, when you have the number of Israeli regime forces that were more than the normal numbers when they go into the camp or into the Jenin area, and the level of ferocity that was used in terms of not only the gunfire, but also in terms of the way that they attack Palestinians, the number of dead and the number of injured is reflective of that. Are we looking now at a new playing field, so to speak, when it comes to Israel? Our guest there mentioned that it seems like Israel is now taking this to another level, based on what our guest there said. Is that how you see things?
It may be that they're taking things to another level, but I think what we see in response is a step change in the activities of the resistance in the West Bank. The the report there mentioned one Israeli armored vehicle being destroyed, but there were a large number of Israeli armored vehicles destroyed by a huge number of different IEDs planted along the roadside, which you can see on the various videos which are circulating about this. This is a set of attacks whereby 7, 8, possibly more Israeli armored vehicles were incapacitated or destroyed, and they had to be removed under gunfire by large IDF tractors. Now, of course, it's said that 7 IDF personnel were injured or wounded. It's likely that there were deaths, but of course they tend to underreport those. But so what we see there, therefore, is a step change in the resistance tactics. And also, I think you mentioned the Apache helicopter, and of course they brought a helicopter in to evacuate wounded, but also they brought a helicopter in to launch attacks. Now, the footage you see of that shows that the helicopter is deploying countermeasures, which are only deployed where they believe that they are under threat of surface-to-air missiles. So it kind of looks like we were also seeing a step change in the resistance in the north of the West Bank in terms of the employment of surface-to-air missiles. Now that would be, again, another key indication. It's said that these were Palestinian Islamic Jihad fighters who were undertaking this, and of course this comes in the context of the new spirit of resistance there is around Jenin and Nablus and other areas where all the different resistance factions are fighting together in new brigades, many of them with new names which have appeared only this year. So we're seeing a step change in terms of response to the Israelis of the resistance, and that, I think, is an indication of something new which is about to happen. If the Zionists want to escalate in the way which Ben Gvir and Smotrich are suggesting, well, then it's pretty clear, and this has been said verbally as well as being shown now on the streets, it's pretty clear that the resistance is ready to escalate as well. And if they want to have an end to the escalation, then the solutions are either the Zionists move out and demilitarize, or that we have effective international action to isolate the Zionists in the world community.
All right. So Mohammed Abu Saad, our guest there, said if the Zionists want to escalate, I don't know if you agree or not, but I think things have gone past escalation. I think this far-right cabinet from day one came in to, and I'm sorry to say this, to close the file on Palestinians. They have escalated things to the max when it comes to the number of deaths, when it comes to settlements, when it comes to yesterday with this raid that took place in terms of their military and artillery fire. They just want to move in and pretty much do away with what was before. Not that the previous administrations didn't do that. They did it in a slower pace. They've increased the pace of the different violations taking place. Do you agree with that vantage point or look at how things are?
I totally agree with you, and I say that for a number of reasons. I think, yes, the number of Israeli escalations against the Palestinians, especially in the areas of Jenin and Nablus, over the past 6 months since this new Israeli government has come into office, has been the worst. Look at the numbers. More than 170 Palestinians have been killed over the past 6 months. Thousands of Palestinians have been injured. The Israeli current government, which has been viewed by the international community as one of the most extreme, ultra-nationalist, ultra-Jewish government, has gone without any accountability in terms of its settlement expansion in the Palestinian territories, in terms of its encirclement and Judaization of East Jerusalem, and also in terms of the aggression against the Palestinian people. So it's not a matter of whether this government has been really gone from bad to worse. It's quite clear. But let me also add another thing here, is that this Israeli government has been defiant of international community. Many countries around the globe has been denouncing many laws by this government which has been passed over the past 6 months. And unfortunately, this government is not paying attention to the international community or to even UN Security Council resolutions and other international conventions. It's clear to me as a Palestinian that members of this government like Smotrich, Ben Gvir, and even Prime Minister Netanyahu are trying to liquidate the so-called the Palestinian issue. Over the past 56 years since the occupation of Palestinian land in 1967, different Israeli government tried over the pace of time to expand Israeli settlement to by imposing further aggressive measures against the Palestinians. But it seems to me that this current Israeli government is trying to liquidate the so-called the Palestinian issue, to liquidate Palestinian resistance by the measures that they are taking. And going back to your question, I don't think that there is consensus within the Israeli government on what to do or how to deal with the Palestinian resistance. Some Israeli elements are afraid that if there's going to be a big military operation in Jenin or in Nablus, that might lead to further escalation with the Palestinian in other areas in the West Bank or even with the Gaza Strip. And that's why we say that there is some of Israeli hesitation to go further with their aggression against Jenin and Nablus.
Well, you don't have to look too far back, David Miller, when to answer the point that our guest there made. Just last week, I believe it was, that the Israeli army conducted a large-scale military drill that involved that the premise was if they were to be attacked by resistance forces from different directions. So I think the psyche is there, that they want to prepare themselves for that. And it just appears there's a certain feel behind what happened yesterday, that perhaps this is dark clouds that are coming before the storm is going to break out, that there will be a large-scale military operation that's going to take place in the occupied West Bank, that we're seeing the start of it from what happened yesterday, in order for them to ramp up the detainment and the killing of Palestinians. Maybe that's just speculation. I don't know if you agree or not. How do you see things moving forward? Where is this going to go?
So, I mean, of course, they are escalating, and of course, this is the worst that it's been. Of course, they want to liquidate the Palestinians. But let's be clear, liquidate the Palestinians as a people. They want to either expel or kill all the Palestinians. And the difference between the Zionists is only the speed at which they want to do that. The Ben Gvirs and Smotrich want to do it yesterday, Netanyahu maybe next week, and the liberal Zionists in a few years' time maybe. But the problem here is that they are meeting an enemy which they cannot easily defeat. They've seen that if they escalate, the resistance will escalate. The resistance has told them time and time again from Gaza, from Beirut, that they will escalate if the Zionists make wrong moves. And the escalation means, of course, not just Gaza, not just the West Bank. It means Iraq, it means Iran, it means Hezbollah, it means the Syrians as well. And that's the problem which the Israelis face. That's why they've done several incidents recently where there have been what they would refer to as provocations, and they have responded to those provocations by bombing, but not by not killing anybody. And that's been done deliberately because they are afraid of that escalation. So there's a division internally, yes, but they're also at a tactical level afraid of the escalation because they know that the forces arrayed against them could actually bring down the Zionist entity as a whole. And that's a calculation they're trying to make. They're trying to walk that tightrope. At the same time as they've got these protests on the streets, mainly Zionist protests, and the Mossad and indeed elements of the elite IDF have sanctioned their members to protest against the government. So there's a deep division within the Zionists, not over Zionism, but within the Zionists about tactics. And that, of course, is part of their hesitation too. They don't know quite how that's going to play out. And that means, of course, that there's a possibility that the traditional supporters, especially the US, may draw a line at some point. And also, of course, the Americans' power is waning in the world, as we see every day with the rise of multipolarity. So it doesn't look good for Israel. Yes, they will try and escalate. Yes, they will use appalling tactics, and they will kill many more Palestinians. But it doesn't seem clear that they can do whatever they want.
Thank you so much. We're going to unfortunately have to end it. David Miller, co-host of Press TV's Palestine Declassified from Bristol. Thank you, David. Mukhaber Abasada, Professor of Political Science at Al-Azhar University from Gaza City. Thank you to you both. With that, we come to an end for this edition of the News Review.